NBA players get paid. Just how much do they get paid?
Cash money and big money.
And so much money,
What do you do for a living?
No, we just work hard. We work extremely hard.
you can't even admit it on camera. Despite the pandemic and arenas hardly being allowed to have but so many fans in to watch the games, these players are raking in more bags than your auntie on a Sunday afternoon. And it only makes sense considering forms of entertainment are limited, so folks will still shell out massive amounts of cash for their entertainment. Anything to distract from the bleak reality we face otherwise. Considering the huge hit the NBA took during the onset of COVID, NBA basketball being on our TVs brought us a kind of refuge that likely saved many of us from ourselves. That being said, it is still incredible how much some of these players are making. But we won't just focus on the highest earners in this video. Today, we will focus on those players that make just as much or even more than their much better performing counterparts. I'm talking about players that don't exactly move the needle on a team's overall performance, but somehow command an incredible amount of cash reserves from the franchise. These players aren't exactly the types you want to build a team around, but sometimes they think they're better than they actually are, and in some cases come along as a package deal, and when you get package deals, value goes down. Some of the players on this list are first options, others are second, third, and even worse, completely out of the starting lineup. Hey, what's happening everyone? This is Swish. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 most overpaid players currently in the NBA. Or rather, the all-NBA overpaid team. If you've been watching the videos and like the content, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more. Just for some extra info, this is going to be a 2-part series with the next part focused on the 5 most underpaid players in the league today as well. The average NBA salary has increased by more than 7 times since 1991, far outpacing the rate of inflation. This means that much more value is being placed on individual talent as the pay gap between players has been growing exponentially. While the pay increase is warranted for some players, others not so much. I'm sure this is information that you guys wouldn't mind having, especially when it comes to trades and who your team should sign in free agency. So I took the liberty of going through all the hard work of weeding out the players who apparently have the most skilled agents this side of the CIA. It's incredible what these agents have been able to do for these players, and you will realize just why as we go down this list. So without further ado, let's get to the most overpaid player. Coming in at number 5 is Otto Porter Jr. Otto, who originally signed this insane contract with the Wizards, was just recently traded to the Magic from the Bulls and is in the final year of a contract that saw him average $26 million per year. This being the last year on the contract, however, will see Porter Jr. rake in over $28 million. I mean, on what planet should Otto be surrounded on a salary scale by the likes of CJ McCollum and Jaylen Brown? They said Wiggins' contract was bad, and Andrew Wiggins is set to make $29 million this year. So what, you might say? Is Wiggins really that much better than Otto? Truth is, Otto has missed 20 of the 49 games played this year between the Bulls and the Magic, and is averaging an abysmal 9.7 points per game and 5 rebounds for the ones he was present. As a top 3 pick, Wiggins gets blasted for his expensive contract, but aside from a couple of good years with the Bulls, Otto hasn't really lived up to his expectations either. Not even close. This gave the Bulls incentive to send him to the Magic in a package for the Vooch, and likely laughing all the way to the bank for stiffing the Magic and getting a much better player despite the additional contract stuffing. Fillers. Needless to say, Porter Jr. becomes an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, and believe me, there aren't many folks in line to sign him for anywhere near that amount come the offseason. Now here's where it really gets exciting. The 4th most overpaid player in today's NBA is Al Horford. Horford swindled the Sixers when he signed a $27 million a year contract for 4 years. At 33 years old. While he can shoot the 3 well enough for his size, there must have been something else going on. I mean, why else would Philly fork over so much cash for a big man? Let's see, the year they signed Horford, he averaged 12 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists on 35% shooting from the perimeter. So that equals 27 million? This is more per year than what a 21-year-old Giannis signed for just 2 years prior. Giannis!
Oh my goodness, Chandler! I know you used to play here. You don't anymore.
Coming off a season where he just averaged 23, 9, and 5, and only 2 million less than Embiid's current contract. Now, I don't know what world the Sixers were living in, but putting Horford in such elite company made this contract one of the worst in recent memory. Clearly, there was no particular reason they signed Horford for that much dough, as shortly thereafter, and lucky for the Sixers, the Thunder had been keen on getting the scraps and picks from every other team in the league and snatched up Horford's ridiculous contract. Horford had been missing a lot of games this season, and to make matters worse, the Thunder are not even playing Horford the rest of the year. Just astounding! Not even halfway through his contract and barely halfway through his first season with the Thunder, he's nothing more than a complete deadweight to the team that they likely can't wait to move. Yeah, good luck. At number 3 on my list is Paul George. Paul George just re-signed with the Clippers for an average of $44 million per year over the next 4 years, which at the time made him the highest paid player in the NBA. However, it currently makes him the second highest player, as Giannis has since surpassed him. This is an uber elite category. I don't know about you, but I can easily and quickly rattle off 10 players better than Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Steph Curry, James Harden, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, KD, Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, Klay. Yeah, I think I already hit 10. All but one player on that list currently makes less money than Paul George. To add further salt to the wound, Paul George isn't even the best player on his team. His teammate and first option Kawhi Leonard is currently signed for a measly $34 million per year. This is insane. Over the course of one single year, the difference between Kawhi's and PG-13 salary is enough for Paul George to buy himself a yacht and never have to look his underpaid coworker in the eye. He could also buy himself his own private island 10 times over. That way, while Kawhi is struggling to avoid COVID, Paul George could take his yacht and go island hopping while sipping margaritas on the beach, still banking Kawhi money. Paul George averages 22.5 points per game compared to Kawhi's 25.8. 5.4 assists to Kawhi's 5, however he turns the ball over a lot more with 3.2 turnovers compared to Kawhi's 1.9, and Kawhi pulls down 6.7 rebounds to Paul George's 6.2. When you add all this to the fact that Paul George has a huge tendency to disappear during the playoffs, it becomes no question why Paul George is one of the top 5 most overpaid players in the league today. The second most grossly overpaid player in the NBA is Russell Westbrook, and for obvious reasons. Westbrook is sitting pretty with a cool $41.4 million per year from the Wizards. Now, this is less than what Paul George is making. However, Paul George has the argument that his team is at the top of the Western Conference. I know some Westbrook fans might disagree because
a little bit too much stats, you know.
Look at the stats. This guy's putting up numbers. He's got 21.8 points per game, 10.5 assists, and 10.5 rebounds. I mean, the guy's an absolute monster, right? He's averaging a triple-double for crying out loud. But there's more that goes into a game than
too much stats, you know.
And if Russell Westbrook wants to be truly valued, he'll need to do more winning than losing. The Washington Wizards currently have a record of 17-32, which puts them at the 13th seed in the East. You'd think a player putting up those numbers next to a primary offensive player in Bradley Beal, who's putting up 31, 5 and 5 himself, that this backcourt should be ranking near the top of the all-time boards. I mean, this makes you really take a second look at James Harden, with whom Westbrook played last year and easily made it to the second round of the playoffs in the West. How talented must James Harden be to literally have to drag his former team along with Westbrook to the playoffs? Let's not even mention what he's doing on the Nets this year. This is insane. So what seems to give? All those
a little bit too much stats, you know,
on the Wizards, and they are still nowhere near the playoffs in the less talented Eastern Conference. Seems to me like someone is focusing on
a little bit too much stats, you know.
He's never been on a winning team and doesn't seem to move the needle regardless of where he goes. This is why Westbrook is overpaid. And the most insanely overpaid player in the NBA is John Wall, who is currently making Milwaukee Bucks to the tune of $42.8 million per year. That he is right before Westbrook makes sense, doesn't it? Seeing how the two were literally traded for each other this past year. After coming back from his Achilles injury, Wall has just about picked up from where he left off, averaging 20 points, 7 assists, and 3.4 rebounds on a team where he's the first option. Just think about that for a second. Wall is currently making more money than Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. As a matter of fact, there are only 5 players currently making more money per year than John Wall: Giannis, Paul George, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, and James Harden. Is there anyone out there that has John Wall as a top 10 player? Top 20? Top 30? Again, 20 points per game. Steph Curry is averaging 29.7 points per game and currently carrying the Warriors, teetering just under a 500 record and currently a 10th seed. Let's do something a little ridiculous and scale these scoring point guard salaries per their actual performance. For a 20 point per game player getting just under 43 million, that would equate to Steph getting a ridiculous contract worth $63 million a year. That additional 33% salary increase would make Steph Curry, who's currently ranked as the 6th highest paid athlete in pro sports, rank among the top 3. Unreal. Now, that was with 33% applied to just Steph Curry's contract, and it doesn't include money he gets paid through sponsorships. Worldwide athletes' total salaries do include sponsorships, however, so this 33% increase would bring Steph from his current $84.4 million to over $104 million, and basically pocket change away from being the highest paid athlete. So, either one of two things will happen. Either John Wall will take a nice pay cut, or Steph needs to get a new agent and the Warriors franchise will put Steph where he belongs on that list of paid athletes. Why don't you guys let me know in the comments below who you think are some other grossly overpaid NBA players, or even other sports players if you'd like, and whether or not you think they top this list. That's it for today's video, and thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. Till next time.
I block so hard, sweetie get served. Call me Lonzo Ball, bitches get swerved.
Usually I don't get down with these girls, but tonight it's on my mind, so I might eat these words. I just wanna